Okay, everybody, welcome India Gail. She is a woman in recovery here to share her experience, strength, and hope in regard to intimacy, overcoming fear of intimacy, or whatever her specific uh, journey was like. So let's start with that. Excuse me. Let's start with how old you were when you got sober, how long ago that was, and then what your romantic or sexual life was like in those years leading up to when you got sober. Like, what were
Okay.
your issues? What were your patterns? That kind of thing.
Whew.
I
Okay.
know that's kind of a broad question. I'm sorry. So you
No,
can take it anywhere you want, and yeah.
okay, cool. So I just turned 42 last week and I got sober, June 15th of 2009, like right before my 26th birthday. Um,
So you were relatively young. I was
I
29.
was young.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I kind of felt old, like, oh my God, I've wasted so much of my life. And then I would see people come into the rooms that were 30, 40, 50. And then I thought, wow, I actually got lucky.
It's true. Yeah, one of my closest friends, actually, the friend that was with me the last night that I drank, who was kind of the catalyst of like, he was like my hard partying friend, and even he was like, it's not fun anymore. Like you're out of control. Um, and he just picked up 90 days. Um,
Oh, just recently?
yeah, and he's like very fun, like high functioning and very like has seems like he has his shit together. And it's okay if I curse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
go for it.
yeah, like I've always looked up to him as like my most grown up friend. And now he's like very newly in sobriety. And we've gone to a meeting together and he's like, this is my friend. She's been sober forever, for so long. And, you know, now he's saying like he's looking up to me, which is very interesting. I just felt like it was time. I don't know what I don't know what happened necessarily. It's just that I woke up one day
Did you have a
thinking,
bottom? Did you have, like, the classic low bottom? I mean, it takes what it
think
takes. Some people's low
so.
bottom is they embarrass themselves at a party or whatever. My bottom was like I was almost dead. Like, what was yours?
I kind of feel like I was dragging along like I hit bottom pretty early and then was just dragging along for a long time. And it wasn't necessarily like a I lost everything kind of bottom because I never had anything to lose. I never built anything because I just started drinking and using, like an addict so young.
Mhm.
Um, that I was always just kind of like just kind of drifting through life, just kind of like in survival mode all the time, um, mostly in a blackout, just getting by however I could, like never was able to like have any real relationships or like jobs or build, you know, even hobbies or interests. I just like lived to get fucked up from the time I was like 12 or 13 until I got sober. And I would just latch on to people that would kind of like carry me through until they got sick of my shit and would kick me to the curb. And then I'd find new people, and I think that day kind of waking up in the morning and just realizing like it was a day like any other day, but it was a Monday. I had spent all my rent money. Like Friday, I was like, I have my rent money, so I don't have to work the rest of the weekend. I'm just going to play. And then by Monday, my rent money was gone. I didn't know what I had spent it on. I had a feeling that people were mad at me because I had spent the weekend in a blackout. And it was just that deep shame that I woke up with every day. And I just had this realization of like, I'm going to keep waking up like this. Like, nothing's going to change. I'm not, there was a time where I hoped I could like consume enough that maybe I would just go to sleep and not wake up, you know? And that just wasn't happening. And it had been, I guess 13, 14 years kind of that, and just had this moment where some intuitive thought came in and was just like, nothing's going to change unless you do something different. Like, I had had people in my life that had gotten sober, and I'd had the conversations with them of like, yeah, I just feel like I need to like learn to like manage my alcohol better, or like manage my drinking, or like how can I, just like I just need to cut back. Like, do you have any suggestions?
Right.
And people will be like, well, I can take you to a meeting. And that was not like,
No,
no matter
no, like
what, not
why would you want to
me.
quit? I thought people who quit, like there was something wrong with you. Like you can't, I wanted to moderate. I was always trying to ask people, how do I moderate? I went to a doctor once, I was shooting up speed and I was asking him for tips on how to moderate shooting up speed, and he was kind of taken aback. I don't think anybody, and I was like 18, 17, 18 at the time. And he offered to, he didn't know, I don't think anyone had ever approached him like this, but he was like, well, I can take you to this, like it was like a rehab. This was
Yeah.
40 years ago. And I had driven past that place and it had like barbed wire. And I ran out of that office. But I didn't
Mm,
want to moderate. I didn't want to moderate up to the day I got sober. I thought a life without alcohol seems insane to me. But I was like,
same.
I started at 15, 16, not 12 or 13. But uh, some was there something that propelled you at such a young age to start? Was it normalized in your household? Was there some sort of trauma? And you don't have to get too personal if you don't want to, but
Um,
12 is
I
young.
think I think probably trauma. I didn't realize it was trauma at the time, and it wasn't, until I was sober a few years and then decided that like maybe I needed some outside help and I should go to therapy. Um, and that's when I was told. So my mom died when I was really small, when I was like 2.5.
Mhm.
And then it was just me and my dad for a couple of years, and then he remarried, and we didn't talk about her, about my mom that passed away. It was just kind of like, this is your new mom now, and this is like this is what life is now. I think I was like 5 or 6 when he remarried, and then they had a baby, and then it was just like, I don't remember any of this because I was so young. And when I would tell people like, oh, my mom died when I was, a toddler, and they'd say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'd say, why? Like, I don't remember her. So it didn't affect me, and then at, you know, 29 years old, finally going to therapy for the first time and having it explained to me, like, hey, you're forming your attachments at that age. And the most important person in your life went away and never came back.
Mhm.
And you couldn't understand why. And like, that's, you know, that's when I learned, the term anxious attachment.
Mhm.
um, but I think there were other factors of just like, you know, I think both of my dad and my stepmom both loved me, but they had like they couldn't see eye to eye on a lot of things on how to raise kids, and they didn't have a lot in common. I don't think they really liked each other.
Mhm.
And I feel like I just internalized a lot of things like everything was my fault.
Right.
Um, and that was something my therapist said too, of like, if, your mom went away and didn't come back and you couldn't understand why. And like, I guess when your brain is developing at that age, like you don't have a sense of like other people are people. It all revolves around you. So anything anyone else does is like because of you.
Right. Yeah, because
So
if you think that your parents left because some force out of your control took them away, that's a terrifying feeling that there's a force that's powerful. So it's easier, I think, somehow. I'm not a therapist, but to me it seems easier to think, well, I did something wrong. I sent her away, or it's
yeah, and I think it's just like your
it makes
like
no sense.
the brain development at that point,
Right.
like it's just all self. Like I think your
Right.
empathy like doesn't come in until you're like 8 or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah,
But
that sounds about right. So yes, it's all about you and everything. it comes back to you or something that you did. And I love
Mhm.
that you brought up the attachment styles, because I've always been avoidant. I mean, they can get kind of intricate, but there's anxious attachment styles, there's avoidant, and then there's secure attachment styles, to be very basic about it. And I tended to keep people at arm's distance because that felt more less risky, like I was going to get hurt less that way. But there are other people who have an anxious, and there are different types of anxious attachment styles, but it's if you want to, do you want to describe a little bit what that was like for you, what that felt like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can describe it because I'm feeling it right now. I can describe the feeling. It's a feeling in my chest, like a tightness that just it won't go away. And it's like I forget to breathe, or like I can't, like I have to remind myself to breathe. And everything feels like it's just like buzzing. And like the only thing that's going to fix it is like knowing that whoever the person is that I'm fixated on is not going to go away.
Mhm.
And the thing about that that's interesting is I do tend to attract people that are avoidant, or my anxiousness can drive them to become avoidant.
Yeah.
And then the more they start to kind of push, the more that I'm like
Yeah.
and clean. And it's really it's tough. It makes having relationships very tough. And I think, growing up, there was always a sense that like I didn't quite fit, um, that I was different from everyone around me. And in some ways I was. I grew up in a place that's predominantly like wealthy white people. And, I'm biracial. My dad's white. My mom's black. My stepmom is black. But like there weren't really a lot of other kids that looked like me and my siblings. Um, but it was also like liberal Southern California. Like we don't, in those days, right? Like the 80s, 90s, like we're in a post-racial, we don't see color kind of environment. So it's just like not acknowledged or addressed that
Mhm.
I'm different.
Yeah. So you were kind of othered at the same time you were not seen at all. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was like, I've also been at 38 years old, was diagnosed with ADHD. Like there's just a lot, there was mental health stuff that wasn't getting addressed. My parents were very focused on my younger brother who was diagnosed, autistic. Um, and I just think I was just being missed. And I just felt so anxious, so uncomfortable all the time, just going through life, always feeling like something's wrong with me, or I'm doing something wrong, or I have to like hide from people that there's something wrong with me. I have to like try and fit in or adapt, or, and I just think it was honestly when I was about 7 or 8, I went to church with a friend, a little friend's family. Like my family wasn't religious or anything, and my family also wasn't. Nobody drank in my house. Um, but I went with her because I'd slept over at her place on Saturday night. We went to church on Sunday, and I took communion and had a sip of wine. And it just was like, I don't know how to explain the feeling, but I'm sure you know the feeling of that first sip, and it's
The
warm
first, my
and it's
first, yeah.
comforting.
It was the first time I felt normal. My first
Yeah.
thought after having my first drink was a shot of tequila that a really hot doctor that I was babysitting for at like 14 gave me. And I just wanted to do what I just wanted to flirt with it, whatever. And so I just did what he gave me. And my first thought as it went down was, I feel pretty and sexy and confident and witty. And this must be how other people feel all the time. This is what normal feels like. This is why other people can socialize and laugh and move through the world so confidently and normally. This is what they feel like. This is what normal feels like. Where do I
Yeah.
get more of this? That's what I want.
Yeah, it was definitely a feeling that I chased. And I mean, I was so little, but like anytime I would go sleep over at friends' houses and I would see, if their mom had like a box of Franzia in the fridge or whatever, and I would like sneak a little cup and it wasn't when I was 12 years old, that's when I fully like got drunk for the first time and raided, my friend's parents' liquor cabinet and gave myself alcohol poisoning, threw up all over their house, like woke up covered in my own vomit and just was like, well, this is what I do now. Like that was it. That I just like the fact that I had blacked out, that I didn't remember anything, that I didn't have to be present in my body, like that was the feeling that I was chasing for the rest of my days after that. And that was also around the same time talking about, intimacy and sexuality and stuff like that I was starting to develop early and kind of realized that I could use that to feel liked or accepted or like I fit in, kind of just like discovering my sexuality a little bit at a very young age. And like, okay, like I'm in seventh grade and um I had to move schools for like a semester for, whatever reasons. And I it was like so scary being the new girl. And I just decided like, okay, I can be like, I can make up a new identity for myself, right? I had gone to school with the same kids since like kindergarten. And I decided I was going to be like the bad girl. I was going to be the rebel. I was going to be, because I had, drank and I liked it. And I was, I had tried cigarettes and I had tried weed. And I was like, I'm going to be like, I'm going to come in like the rebel girl. And I had like gotten little boobs, for the first time and was like, I'm going to be the girl that like likes to party and will like let boys feel her up behind the math building or whatever. And that's how I'm going to like get people to like me, like I didn't feel like I could win people over with like my good qualities. I didn't know what those were. I never had them like affirmed for me, or if they were, I wasn't able to hear it.
And did you get the sense that most of your power, or certainly the easiest access to it, was through your sexuality and and how people could, how boys, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if it was girls
It was
or
both.
boys or both.
It was everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a certain power. If you feel powerless in the world at 12 or 14 or 10 or whenever you start to develop, it is the easiest. It's such an easy route to start getting what you want, to getting the attention you want, the validation you want, the
Yes.
connection, the affection, the company, to start feeling less alone in the world. It's just the quickest, easiest route for a young girl, right? And
Yeah.
did you find boys that were um, anyone who wanted to spend real time with you, or did you just have, like, when I didn't really have anything close to like a long-term boyfriend. I had other girls' boyfriends, on the weekends. They weren't around.
Yes.
Like I didn't have any kind of long-term relationship until I was 20, and that was very dysfunctional. But I was for 5 years all through high school, and but again, I was avoidant. So I don't know. Did you have boyfriends or just partners?
I had partners. I had maybe one boyfriend that I can think of in high school, and that was the guy I lost my virginity to, and he was a very sweet person, and he was my friend's older brother. Um, so I think I was a freshman, and he was like a junior or senior, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I did. I think that relationship was only like a few months even. And I think he was like he was very studious, and I would go to their house every day after school because, their mom worked and wasn't home. And so we would all go, kids would all go back there after school. We'd like smoke weed, and then everybody else would like do their homework. And I would be up in the liquor cabinet, to the point where I was starting to have to like water down their mom's bottles and stuff. And had started doing hard drugs around that time. And I just wasn't interested in like anything but partying. And he was just like a nice boy that got good grades, and he was smart, and he was applying for colleges, and he treated me very well, and we did stay friends, but it didn't last more than like 3 months or something because I just was so wild.
Mhm.
Um, and then I think mostly, yeah, I would get crushes on other girls' boyfriends. I would try to, I don't know, like prove my worth by like, oh, you know, I can get your man, I can
Oh
take your
yeah.
man or whatever. Like it was a sick, you know,
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that that's a pattern though. I mean, I really like to kind of zero in on some of these patterns. I was a stripper for 14 years, and one of my favorite things about it was that every single customer who bought a dance from me and not her was like winning the affections from of my father away from the original other woman, my mother. Because my father, as much as he loved and cherished me and delighted in me, never stood up for me when she was criticizing me. And whenever she was berating me, and I felt like emotionally, I didn't have the words for emotional abandonment or whatever. I wanted him to choose me over her and to save me, and he never would. He always, deferred to her, which is not uncommon at all. Most men they know how to keep the peace in the house, and that's shut up,
yeah,
let her raise the kid, whatever. Um, but again, it was a pattern all my life. Winning someone else's husband or boyfriend was
yeah,
very validating for me. It's a very twisted pattern.
it is. We have a lot in common in that way. And I think, yeah, my dad was trying to keep the peace. My mom was very, she wanted to be very strict with me, but I wasn't having it. And there was the dynamic, the fact that she wasn't my birth mom, so she didn't feel like she necessarily had the authority to like I think at one point she wanted to send me away to one of those like, wilderness programs or whatever that like Paris Hilton went to.
Yeah, I've read about
Kids
those.
from in my hometown were getting snatched up in the night, man. Like I would get calls from my friends, they've come for me, goodbye. Like they
Oh,
let you make a call and say bye to people, and they come for you the night in the night, and they take you away, and you don't see them again.
that's traumatic.
Crazy. Yeah, and my mom thought that was going to be the way to like, you know, fix me. I think it came from a place of love, and she was worried about me, and my dad was kind of in denial of what was going on with me.
Mhm.
He didn't, I mean, I guess he did stick up for me in some ways, but then that became the rift between them. And
Mhm.
so then I was feeling responsible for, if he would stand up for me, then it caused turmoil in the house. And so, yeah, that tracks. And I did, when I turned 18, started working in strip clubs as well, first as a cocktail and then as a dancer until I got sober, actually. Um,
That's funny story.
and
I actually
yeah,
continued after I got sober, and then I went back to it again years later. But much by then I was 10 years sober, and so I was actually able to do it with the boundaries in a much healthier way later in
I
life.
wish that I had done that. I had a moment like after I had my kids and my body was ravaged, and then looking back at pictures of like because when I was stripping, I was not cute. I
Oh.
was like C squad day shift, like
But you were
I
using,
was just
right?
there for the free drinks
Yeah.
and to make enough money to go to the bar that night. And I was a bloated, like slurring, stumbling mess. I was the girl falling off the stage. Like it wasn't good. And then I got sober and I got into like working out. I was running, I was lifting weights, I was riding my bike. I was like fit and gorgeous and healthy and happy. And I look back at pictures from that stretch before I got pregnant and was like, damn, that's when I should have been in the club. Like
Missed opportunity.
yeah, I had healthy boundaries. I had good self-esteem and I was like hot and I could have, you know, stacked some paper, but you know, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Because when I retired, it was because I didn't, I was when I retired the first time, I had been stripping for 10 years and I didn't have great boundaries. I had been sober for a year and a half, but I had developed an eating disorder. So I was gaining weight. And back then in Vegas, they didn't have big girls. At size 8, maybe. And there was only 1 or 2 of those, right? It was at size 6 and down. And so I was moving up into a size 8 and eventually a size 10, I guess. And, these days I mean, you see size 10 girls all over the strip clubs. So back then you really didn't. And I felt uncomfortable, but I also knew that I knew I didn't have good boundaries and that in Vegas, they were, when I first started in the 80s, the customers didn't touch you. If they did, you had to be very, very sneaky about it. It was very
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
And by the time I quit in Vegas in 98, there were you could give it didn't you had to still be very careful, but there were blowjobs in the VIP room. There was all kinds of stuff, and you didn't do a dance without customers latching onto your breasts and digitally penetrating you and
Mhm.
I mean they were trying. Not all the girls were letting it happen, but enough were that every guy tried, and
And
I
then if you say no, they're like, well, then her over there will let me.
Right,
And then,
exactly. And the thing is that you
I
could have
guess.
in Vegas you could have made $500 a day with boundaries or $1,000 a day without any. And I wanted the money because it was how I quantified my value. I had it was early in sobriety. I still um, I still was riddled with shame and self-loathing. And so if I could go into the club and make $1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500, then I had value. That's, and so I had no boundaries and I knew every penny was going to go to therapy or some institution. I was going to have to lock myself away. So I quit and I didn't go back for like 8 years or something like that. And I really looked good in those 8 years. And I think about, man, if I had been able to go back in a healthy way, through
Yeah.
the 30s, I went back when I was 38 or 39. And I still looked good, but I tell you, I quit finally at 42 and I had such a degenerated spine. I was in constant pain. I
Oh,
was
I bet.
yeah, I looked younger than a lot of the girls who were 5 years younger than me, but I did not feel younger. I was in constant pain.
Yeah. I feel like my knees are still shot
Oh
just
yeah.
from that like 7 years. But yeah.
So so you're using drugs. It sounds like you were a really heavy, just hardcore alcoholic from early on, like from like a
Mhm.
blackout drinker from the first time, which
Yeah.
I was I was a blackout drinker from very early on as well. I'm like a true alcoholic, I think. And then did you have any kind of healthy I mean I wouldn't say healthy. Did you have any stabilizing force, any regular man in your life, or was it
No, I mean
in,
I had a lot of partners and I had some relationships. I had boyfriends, but it would never really last. I was not um ever able to be faithful to anybody, when I was drinking. It was just a constant like I needed attention all the time. And it's like if you weren't there wasn't enough anyone could do to validate me, like that. Even if somebody was treating me so well and making it so clear that they loved me, like I still had to go and seek it out over there and over there. Um and then I still would be so insecure about whatever they were doing, even if they weren't doing anything.
yeah,
Um,
because if you don't have some love for yourself, you don't trust. You think they're either crazy or stupid or they'll get over it or whatever. You can't really count on it. You can't believe it or trust it. What
yeah.
and then what changed? So once you got sober, you just had I sometimes I think that every now and then those few people in my life that had gotten sober and would talk to me a little bit about it here and there. And I always thought, I have no interest, I have no interest. But the day that I got sober, I think those words would come back to me. And I remember thinking I should call that girl who says she's saving me a seat in the meetings. And I did call her. I mean, sometimes it feels like they make no impact at all. But then the day you decide to get sober, maybe some of those words come back to you, or I don't know. But once you got sober, whatever it was that did it, then what happened?
So I had a girlfriend who had been my roommate. She was a former roommate, and we worked together in the strip clubs, like in California and here in Austin. And she was also like, we partied together. She was just as hardcore as I was, and she was like kind of a bitch and like scary. And she got sober, and she started going to meetings, and she started working the steps, and she became a different person. Um, quickly.
Mhm.
Like a lovely human being, a joy to be around, sweet and vulnerable, and like she made amends to me, and it was like I would have never thought, like the way that she expressed her feelings and her fears and insecurities and where she had been coming from and the character defects and everything. I was like that's some real, I think I had had friends that I knew were sober that had gotten sober, and I usually felt like people would get sober and then kind of like obviously not want to be around me because I was a train wreck. Um, but I always felt like they were kind of looking down on me, or like, oh, you're so like high on yourself now, like you think you're better because you're sober. Like, but this person didn't do that. And it was the first time I'd seen somebody like really like have a fucking spiritual awakening, a psychic change, right? That I got to like see. And so I think that was like the thing for me that actually made me be open to going to a meeting, when I finally had that feeling of like I just can't like stand who I am anymore, and I knew that it was possible to be different. I knew that I wanted to be different, and I also could see that like being out there in my addiction, even with the best of intentions, like I was never going to be the person that I wanted to be, like the person of integrity that I wanted to be. So when I finally did come in, I really threw myself in pretty hard to working the steps. I was like very, very thorough in my fourth step. I was really, really looking forward to, I don't know, like learning about myself, having that self awareness, and then getting into 6 and 7 and having those defects removed and being able to make amends. And I'm going to be a totally different person. And in a lot of ways, I was, you know, people talk about like peeling the layers back of the onion, right? And it's like when you first come in and your defects are like, well, I was stealing and I was cheating and I was like screwing my friends' boyfriends and I was, like these are behaviors that you can just like stop doing, right? Like when you're not um getting drunk and high anymore, it is kind of easier to like to stop those glaring um bad behaviors. The thing is though that like the feelings, all that childhood trauma, all that anxious attachment, all the you know rejection sensitivity that comes with having ADHD, like at the time undiagnosed ADHD, but there's this thing called rejection sensitive dysphoria, right? RSD. that a lot of people with ADHD have, where it's like any kind of perceived like rejection or criticism or whatever, like sends you spiraling like beyond what is normal. um
Interesting.
so there's still all these like these feelings, and the ways that they manifest are just not as glaring, right? Like I'm not going to go out and seek validation by sleeping with somebody else's partner. I'm not going to go out and seek validation by cheating on my partner. I've never been unfaithful in a relationship since getting sober. But there are other ways that it can start to manifest, yeah, I'm not like suspecting that my boyfriend likes another girl more than me. And so I'm going to throw a beer bottle at his head and, threaten to kill myself or, whatever. I'm not doing that behavior anymore. But it's like, how do I learn to, like, the feelings don't go away. That like physical sensation of like, oh God, I'm not okay. This person might leave me or might reject me or might not want me and I'm not okay. And I think over the last like 16 years, finding like the times where I have both feet in my program, I'm in meetings, I'm in fellowship, I'm working the steps, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm connected to a power greater than myself, and trusting that like what's meant for me will come. I can have that, the feeling in my chest, the anxiety, the whatever, but I can access healthy tools and move through it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since becoming a mom of twins and then a mom in a pandemic and then a single mom in a pandemic, because I found out that my husband had been unfaithful for most of our marriage. And I found this out during COVID lockdown, um, when I was not able to go to meetings and I was, pretty isolated. And um, it's been, um, so I got divorced in 2021. The the place that I felt I was when I met my husband, when I was, I think, about 5 years sober. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah. I met, we started dating in 2014. So I was 5 years sober. I had been, I had a home group that I attended 3 days a week, and then I would go to other meetings as well. I had a sponsor that I met with, once a week. I was sponsoring multiple women. I had a therapist. I had a workout routine. I had, a job that I enjoyed. I had a creative outlet. I was performing in a band. I was working in a music venue. I had great friends. I had built an amazing life for myself. And then I felt like, okay, I'm ready to bring somebody in for real. And it was the first time, like my first attempt at that didn't go well. I had a like 7 month relationship that I got my heart broken pretty bad. Um, so that first, I think we started out with me talking about going to therapy and finding out about my anxious attachment. And another thing that she told me about myself, she told me a lot about myself in that first session, was that because she asked about my romantic life, my dating life, my intimacy. I was dating at the time, kind of just like having a lot of situationships with like musicians that, you know, really liked me, but not enough to want to settle down with me. They liked me enough to like let me do girlfriend type shit for them, but
Yeah.
wanted to still keep their options open. And I was feeling frustrated with that, and was also dealing with an eating disorder and um, different things that brought me to therapy. And she told me that I had a fear of commitment.
Yeah,
And
did
I
you
was
find it
like,
did you find it interesting that when somebody told me, you're dating unavailable men because you're emotionally unavailable, because I felt like I'm ready,
I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm ready, like
Yeah.
2, 3 years in, I'm like, I'm ready for my Mr. Right. And I would have told you that at any point for the first 25 years of my sobriety. I was ready at
Mhm.
25 years. That's when I met him, by the way. I was not ready a day before that. But I
Oh
would
my
have told you
God.
I was. And then I look back and I think I was so emotionally unavailable, so much. And that's why I was attracting those guys, right? And that
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. You really do attract people who are kind of at the level you're at in these different ways. And then it forces you to hopefully to see that in yourself, and then I don't know, go to therapy or get help or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like, I said, it's not me. I don't know. I'm ready to commit. It's these guys that don't want to commit. And she said, who's choosing these guys?
Yeah.
And then, um, I was pissed, but she
Yeah.
was right. And I got to kind of examine that. And then there was a guy that had been pursuing me, that had been a friend of mine for a long time, and he had been married, and then his marriage was ending, and he started coming around expressing interest in me, and I was like, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. And talking to my therapist every week about it, and I was very, very interested in him, but I was scared, and I didn't believe him that he felt this way about me. There was something that I just couldn't open myself up to, like, accepting that. And, you know, through kind of talking with her every week, she kind of like helped me to open my heart up and like let somebody in and really like fall head over heels in love for this person. And he was not a safe person for me to fall in love with. And he ended up going back to his wife for a little while, and then ended up, it just wasn't the right one. But what she helped me realize was like, hey, like this was a success for you because you did
Mhm.
open up and allow yourself to love and be loved. Like, so it didn't work out, but like,
Yeah, sitting with that rejection has to be,
yeah.
especially for someone like you, but anyone who has that
Oh, I was,
aversion to rejection, that's huge progress, I would imagine. It's got to feel like nightmarish, but it's
it
also got
was,
to
I
be huge
lost
progress.
25 pounds in 2 months. I was
Oh,
110 pounds. I was like
it's a lot.
skin and bones. I couldn't eat. I would just like, but I would go to my meetings and I would cry in the back of the meeting, and I would just be angry and like, I hate God. I hate everyone. Like, I can't believe I opened myself up to this and I got burned. And like, see, this is just proof that I'm, unlovable. Like all of that, like gross stuff that happens. But I still kept, you know, doing the deal and working my steps and sponsoring people and going to my home group. There was an old timer in my home group that would every day after the meeting give me a big hug, and he'd say, through it, not around it. And I moved through it. And I never allowed myself to like feel feelings like that, right? Like to be heartbroken and sober. And I'm a bartender. So I'm like, yeah, just like, what do you do when you're going through a breakup and you can't just like go out with your friends and get trashed and fuck someone else or whatever? Like I had to actually like do the work, do the writing, sit with it in meditation, look for my part. And, I came out on the other side of that really ready, and I met my husband, and it just like clicked with us. It felt so right. It felt so good. And I was like keeping, my therapist was looped in and my sponsor was in the loop. And I had like women that I talked to and ran things by, and like the feelings would come up and I would like, I don't know, like I felt like I was really, really healthy going into that relationship. And after a year of dating, um, we decided to get married. And it was like we were going on a road trip to go to a bunch of weddings. And I was like, we had like a wedding in Marfa that I was going to be like a flower girl in, and then a wedding in Malibu that I was going to be a bridesmaid in. And we were road tripping out. And I was like, let's go to Vegas and like get married on our way back. Like that'll be fun. And so we did. And we were married, but living separately because I didn't want to move in together. I was still like, you know, I want to love you. I don't want to date anybody else. Like everything's perfect the way it is. Let's not change anything. Um,
And he
so
was
I
okay with that?
said he was, but he said he was okay with a lot of things that I found out later that he was not okay with. And the reason that everything felt so easy and so smooth was because this was a conflict avoidant person that, because of his own childhood trauma, like didn't feel comfortable ever disagreeing with me about anything. So we never
Yeah.
fought. And I thought, we're so in tune, we're so on the same page, we never argue.
Yeah.
But he was resenting me secretly, and he was, pursuing things with other people behind my back. And, when I did bring up getting married, I said I might not ever want to live together and I probably won't ever want to have kids. And he was like, okay, like, I love you, let's do it. And then we got pregnant with twins on our 1 year anniversary. And then it was like everything changed, right? Like we were both in bands and touring and kind of living this like, free kind of bohemian lifestyle. And then it got real and we did have to like move in together. And, he had to find like a grown-up job and I was home with the babies. And it was like this very like heteronormative, domesticated, like not for me.
Yikes.
And I was unhappy. Um, and I think he was picking up on the fact that I was unhappy and um yeah, I think we lasted what, like 3, 4 years like that before it came to my attention um that he was, lying about working late and going to be with other people. And I think, then at that point I'm and I still am, I guess, trying to like claw my way back into recovery. I'm not getting to meetings as much as I need to. I haven't sponsored anybody in a long time. Like I'm not in my recovery really. Um,
I had a experience where the first guy really fell for hard, or at least the first one I dated that I fell for hard. And it was a short relationship, but I was 6 years sober, and it was that instant thing. We were attached to the hip. We thought we were perfect for each other. He brought up marriage a month in. And then I went to an AA conference and he was going to come with me. And then he had to work. And I came home a week later and it was over. And the woman whose record he was producing, they ended up getting married. And it was a very sudden breakup. He wouldn't explain why. So it was that thing about having no closure and not being respected in that way to tell. And it sent me I went backwards so far. I felt like not so much in my recovery, but at least my progress, it was the first guy I really opened my heart to. And it just got shattered. And so I, within a year, I had kind of stopped going to meetings, and I went every day, sometimes twice a day. I went to conferences, like I was sponsoring multiple women, all that kind of thing. I was like, like you doing the deal. I was running marathons. I was working really hard. I was going to all kinds of meetings. I was in therapy with a weekly with an amazing, I was doing all the things. And I quit going to meetings entirely. I did end up going to a little Al-Anon and Debtors Anonymous because I had that problem too. And then, but I never went back regular. I'm 28 years sober, and I'll go back in spurts. I'll go when I travel because I'll go see friends in AA, and so we'll go to meetings together.
Yeah.
If I have a friend who feels like they want to go to some meetings, I'll take them and I'll start going regularly just to kind of get them going or whatever. So it's, but I take the step. I've taken the steps in the they're the framework through which I approach my entire life. And I think that if you're going to do
Yeah.
one or the other, the meetings or the steps, you better be doing the steps because that's the program, right?
Definitely still working steps. I'm making my way through a fourth step right now, and I am working with a sponsor. I Yeah, it is so it's tough to get back into the habit of doing something regularly when it's not been part of your routine for so long. And I just think when I look at like going through that first heartbreak and like, yeah, how physically devastating it was for me, but moving through it with tools and a program and a community and sobriety and then, my divorce where I had been, not through really any like fault of my own, but just that I had small children and there was a pandemic and, getting back in, we moved far away from my home group. There was just a lot of circumstances to be going through heartbreak with like both feet into a program in a recovery community versus going through it being like a single mom of small children that like need from you constantly. And now I'm like figuring out like I'm living alone with two little kids and we had a bunch of pets together. We had like three cats and two dogs that we split up, and now I'm solely responsible for all these, you know, living beings and having to find time to take care of myself and soothe myself through a heartbreak. And I did not, I mean, the last few years, it's been really kind of like a, a pendulum of like finding, you know, healthy coping skills and then like completely, I mean, I've done it all, besides pick up a drink or a drug, but like I definitely like, I got on the apps. Had never been on dating apps before. And it was like I got on Tinder and
How'd
just
that
went
go?
buck wild, right? And I was like, okay,
Did it go, so was it fun? Did it go well? What was your experience? Were you just looking for some fun guys, fun people to hang out with, or were
I
you
was
looking for
just
something more
looking
serious?
for I mean, yes, but also that validation, right? Like that insatiable need for like something outside myself to validate my worth, right? And I did have fun like there, and I was safe about it. I don't feel shame or like guilt about that phase, but it's also not sustainable. What I feel like whether I'm looking for that validation from like multiple casual partners or I'm looking for that validation in like one partner that really loves me, like either way, I think it's not sustainable. What I'm realizing is just like that. And it's what I've always known since I came into the program and started working the program, that like that validation comes from within me. It comes from, you know, the belief in and conscious contact with like a power greater than myself. It comes from friendships with other women. It's not like comes from, right, like self-esteem through esteemable actions, all these things that, helping others, getting out of myself.
It's true. I mean, all of those things are important and they probably should all come first, but there's something to be said for intimacy and companionship that we're built for connection, I think. To me, intimacy
Oh,
makes life worth
absolutely.
living, and I don't want to live a life without intimacy. And I did for a long time. Like when around the time I hit 50, all I did was work. I'd stopped going even, the first 5 years of my sobriety, all I did was work and work out and try to get my health back and blah, blah. And then I started having fun going out dancing all the time and making friends. And then all of a sudden I went back into work mode because I needed the money and I had all these goals and I was finally pursuing my writing. And I just didn't have time for, I wasn't meeting the kind of guys that the ones who wanted a long-term relationship with me were not the ones that were interesting to me. They were, and so I started at the age of 50, instead of dating older men, or men my own age, which those were the two types that I dated. I started dating younger men. I started dating a bunch of 30, and dating is I use that term very loosely. I started screwing a bunch of 35-year-old dudes, and they were great. They treated me great, and I was in control, and I told them when to come over and when to leave and how often they were allowed to text me in between times. And it was validating and it was fun. And I got the
Exactly.
sex that my body desired, and I was treated like a goddess. And I have zero shame about any of it. I do it all over again. And it was in the middle of that, or after 4 years of that, and I was still having a great time. And I'd kind of chosen one of them that I'd gotten really close with. And so I wasn't, I wasn't juggling three guys or anything that whole time, just some of that time. And that's when I met my perfect partner, the most stable person, the most securely attached type of person, a corporate guy, a CEO guy, like very different from anyone I've ever dated. And it just started playing out and we ended up getting married. But I think that every single person that I dated, or even, my friends with benefits, every one of those guys prepared me. They gave me, and also I will say, as a stripper, and I was an escort for 12 years as well. So 26 or 27 years of working in that industry, you get a lot of praise. You get, as a stripper, you're going to get 25 guys telling you how beautiful you are every day, or maybe five guys, maybe 50. It depends on whether it's a Sunday or a Saturday night, I guess. But every single one of those compliments I needed I mean, it's kind of, that is a little pitiful to say that, but I needed a lot of validation in my life, and I got way more than the average woman, and I wouldn't turn away any of it, including the 35-year-olds in my 50s. And I like all of it. And I don't feel bad about it. I don't know. I mean, I just didn't get it as a kid. And so my
Yeah.
neural pathways there was a big fat hole. And it took all of that for me to finally start to feel, I mean, it took all of the esteemable acts as well. But I don't want to go through life depending solely on myself for all my validation and my girlfriends or my family, whatever. I think that there's something incredibly healing about romantic intimacy. There's something
Oh,
about
yeah.
finding that partner that heals
I
you in a way
agree.
nothing else does.
I agree with all of that. I guess I'm just saying, because I have, like, yeah, gone through the phases of, I don't need no man, I'm just like whatever. Yeah, like I'm just gonna, like you said, for me the sweet spot was 27. I had all these 27-year-olds just hitting me up being like, I didn't realize,
Yeah.
also because, you know, I was feeling not great about my body. My body went through a lot of changes after having twins, obviously, and I never really swung back to what I was before, but there's just like, you know, these younger guys out there that love the way my body looks now and are like, yeah, I love your curves. I love your, whatever, like all the things that I see as imperfections, like, yeah, having these like hot younger guys gas me up and whatever. And like you said, being in control of like, here's when I have time, you can come over and then you can go. And like, no, we won't be cuddling and no, like just really doing that whole deal and feeling like this is fine and I will just, have men for this purpose and then have my friends and have myself And I don't think that that's the way that I want to live. Like I do.
It does help kind of ease you back into more of a relationship. I think it helps build a certain trust that once you get a bunch of guys that are like, hey, I'm willing to abide your boundaries, then you kind of
Yeah.
start to trust, well, maybe the next guy that I have a relationship with, I can also be open about my wants and needs, and he'll
Yes.
trust my boundaries. So I think it's a little bit like a testing ground, maybe. I think it can be helpful.
I think I'm trying to find right now, like, yeah, the balance between like being totally like self-sufficient of like, I don't need a relationship to be okay, which like I think is good. Like I know that I can stand on my own 2 feet, right? Like I can take care of myself and take care of my family, and I have been doing it versus like I've recently met somebody kind of by accident, like not on the apps, in person, and I didn't see it I didn't see it the connection coming, right? Like I met somebody, we've been in each other's orbit for a while, and there's been attraction, and then we finally like hung out, and it was like so easy and so comfortable, and we had more in common than I thought we would, and I thought it was maybe going to be just like a casual hookup, and then there like feelings developed. um and we've been seeing each other for like a little under 2 months, and it's been going really well. And I put the feelers out there of like, hey, like what is this? Can we define this? What are we doing? And the answer that I got back wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. And so it's perceived as a rejection, even though it wasn't. And I like spiral and get so insecure. And then I start to cling. And then it's like, I go from being like, I'm totally fine without anybody. I'm fine on my own. I'm having casual relationships. Like, this is nice, to like, hey, I kind of like someone. This feels good and healthy, to all of a sudden, like, please don't leave me. Like, I'm not going to be okay if this person goes away, if this person doesn't like me. Like, what does that mean about me? And then I'm all of a sudden like feeling, yeah, this just like tightness in my chest, and I can't breathe. And I'm being short with my kids, kind of snapping at them. I'm in a bad mood. I like need this person to say the right things to me so that I can feel like safe or something. And when I get to that place, I guess that's what I mean, is like there's no amount of validation that this person could give
Yeah.
that's gonna fix that. Like that's work I need to do,
Yeah.
when
I
that
wonder,
feels up.
I wonder sometimes if it's like a trauma response because of everything that happened. And all the people who were supposed to be there for you just weren't really there for you. And then when you lose the person who looks like they're going to be there for you, I I had a relationship 10 years sober, and like I said, I was really avoidant pretty much my whole life. But this man, we got really locked into each other, and there was some unhealthy dynamic going on, but there was some healing going on as well. And at one point, I was always the one pushing him away when things got scary. And at one point, he got really scared because he knew he wasn't going to be enough for me. He knew he wasn't at a place where he was going to be enough for me. And I didn't know why he was leaving, but all I know is that he was leaving. And I reacted in a way that it was completely unlike me. And I'm grabbed onto his leg and I'm sobbing. I'm literally hysterical. And he's dragging me across the floor. And I've got my whole body wrapped around his leg. And I'm thinking, I can't breathe. I'm literally going to die if he leaves. Something like I was having a true panic attack. And I'm kind of stepping outside myself going, who is this person? Who are you? To this day, I don't really understand, but I remember thinking it was my dad. There was this sort of moment of abandonment in my towards the end of my drinking when I was almost I was dying, and my father and the man closest to me both sort of abandoned me. And I think I was reliving that trauma. And when we got back together a few days later, it was never quite the same. And I never had that same sort of attachment. And when I ended it 6 months after that, I felt freer than I ever have. I felt like I panicked. It didn't work. He left anyway. I was an utter wreck. And then we got back together. And then I made the decision, like, this isn't healthy and you need to go. And something about that coming full circle, I guess, I felt like it healed that a little bit of that for me. I did also get trauma therapy a little bit later, and well, a lot later in life. But that I found that to be. I did some EMDR, and I found that to be really helpful.
Yeah, I've wanted to do EMDR. It's been tough because I mean, I do my therapy virtually. A lot of the time my kids are here with me, and it's just like I don't know. I know that there's going to be time down the road when they're bigger, when they're out of the house more. Like right now they're so young, they need so much from me, and so I'm just kind of like this is who I am right now. This is my mess and I'm managing it the best I can. And, yeah, I did like this person responded in a way that I didn't expect. And girl, I just got up, we were cuddling in bed and I got up, I started getting dressed and I'm packing all my shit. I'm like taking my toothbrush and my face wash out of the shower. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm gone. I'm leaving now. And he's like, what are you doing? What's happening? And I was like, you're breaking up with me. I'm leaving. And he wasn't breaking up with me, but I got in this, we talked about it a few days later. And he was like, yeah, you were in flight mode. I get it. Like, I go to this place of like, I don't know, like and like I said earlier, right, it's progress, right? I'm not blacking his eye, I'm not eating his car, I'm not, like those are the kinds of things I was crazy when I was drinking, and
Mm,
and some man wronged me, like it was hellfire unleashed. And and now it's like, okay, I'm gonna throw a little tantrum, and then I'm gonna like get some self-awareness about it and we're going to talk through it. But also every little tantrum that I throw because of my anxious attachment, like it does cause people to pull back more and more. Like people don't want to deal with that. And so it is something that I feel like right now I'm in a place of like, did I sabotage this thing that could have been really good? But I'm also in a place of like knowing that what's right for me will find me
yeah,
when the time is right. And if this doesn't work out, it wasn't the right
yeah.
thing. And
I believe
and
that.
I can learn from every experience,
I absolutely believe that. And I'll tell you something else. I don't think I was just lucky when I found a man who tolerated my avoidant tactics. He is a very impatient man. He's used to getting what he wants, and he had to learn to be patient with me. And he loved me so much, and he believed in us so much that he just did his best to learn patience and practice patience. And I, I every now and then I throw a little temper tantrum. I mean, I hung up on him once, which is not something a 50-something-year-old woman does. I mean, that's just, it's so childish. And he said, I wanted to call you all day, but I knew it wasn't the right thing. I thought you'd probably calm down and call me the next day. And that's what happened. And I apologized. And he said, it's completely okay. I understand you were scared. And I was right. He was right. I was scared. I was scared of how fast we were moving, or I mean, it just, so I sometimes I think, and I've seen this before, it's not just me, where one person has more baggage than the other, and the other person just decides to be the bigger person and be more patient and to love them through it and stick with them. And those make the best couples, or the most solid couples. And there's no reason to think that we tend to attract people who are who have about the same amount of baggage, I guess, that we have. But I think sometimes I got lucky. I attracted someone. He had a little bit of baggage in a different way, and it was the kind of thing that I'm really good about tolerating. Right? It was the kind of thing that I'm really good about tolerating, and So I think he might say the same thing about me, like, oh, you put up with this and that. And I think it wasn't that hard, you know, it was,
Yeah.
I saw it for what it was, and he saw my garbage for what it was. And so maybe if this doesn't work out, you'll meet someone who's like, you can throw your little tantrum. It's not going to faze me. There's guys out like that out there. They'll literally say that to you. You can throw your little tantrum. It's not going to faze me. Call me when you calm down. Everything's fine. You know, they're like that. And it's a nice counterbalance to women like us, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that they find us adorable. Come on,
I
the
hope
crazy ones are
so.
good in bed. Come on, we are.
I just, I know that I can be a lot, but I also know I'm, I know what I have to offer as far as like how much love I have to give and how much I am, willing to um adapt and love somebody through their quirks and their stuff. And I do think that, you know, when something is the right fit, it'll work out. And in the meantime, I just keep working on me and I keep like loving my little girls and trying to validate them in ways that I wasn't
Mhm.
validated and make them feel seen in ways that I didn't feel seen so that maybe they can grow up with a secure attachment.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
have to, go through everything that I went through, but
Yeah,
you know,
that added the single motherhood of twins in particular. I can't fathom. I could barely handle, you know,
what?
my job and my AA and my work, you know, like just taking care of. I had a cat, and I found that just as much as I could handle. I can't imagine.
That's how I was before I got pregnant. I wouldn't even have a dog. I was like, a dog is too much responsibility. I have a cat, and
Yeah.
that's plenty for me. And, yeah. And now I'm at home. I got two cats and a dog and two children that like I'm responsible for. Like me, I just don't know how that happened. And, yeah, I picked up my 16-year chip in June and was just like, how the fuck? Like, I didn't think I would be alive this
Yeah.
long. Like,
Mhm.
I hoped that I wouldn't. And now I'm so, like, I am, for the most part, like, reasonably happy most days. Like, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be alive, which is like,
And that's progress. Like I remember I wasn't like I decided not to kill myself. I spent 2 years trying to kill myself and then one day decided not to, but I wasn't, because I knew it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted to be here. It took a good 10 years for me to decide I made the right like I'm glad I'm here. Life is getting better, right? It was maybe even 12 years. Um I don't know, or 15, but I mean I if you'd have told me how long it was going to take me to have a really healthy relationship, or how long it was going to take me to be glad that I didn't kill myself, right? Not to just be glad because it was the right thing to do, but to really be enjoying my life, I don't know if I'd have done it. I think sometimes we get sober and we think in the next 2 or 3 years, everything's going to work itself out. And for people who especially had, you know, the kind of turmoil that you and I had, which is, you know, it's a very intense lifestyle, especially starting at 12. It takes maybe a little bit longer, I think.
yeah,
And it
I
just,
think that
you
was,
can't really look at it as, oh, I should be there yet. I
that
did
was
a
one of
lot.
the
I
things.
spent a lot of my 28 years saying I should be better by now. And I was doing great. That whole 28 years, if I look 6 months back, I was doing better. I was doing things better. I was,
Yeah, that incremental progress,
yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I watched a couple, when we were chatting about having this conversation, and I watched a couple of your other, interviews and heard a bit of your story, and that was like the thing that I appreciated you sharing so much because I do that. Like there are people like my litter mates that came in around the same time as me, or people that came in after me into the rooms, that I've watched them like, oh, I was like living on the street and now I'm like going to grad school and I, own a home and I'm getting married and I, like
Yeah.
just have these like great successes so fast. And I have really, really struggled. I've struggled with my personal relationships. I've struggled with like figuring out a career and money and, just being a grown up feels so freaking hard. Like, I just thought like, oh, once I'm not, like, if I'm sober, I'm not drinking anymore, like everything's going to just like fall into place. And it's still hard being a person. Um, so I just appreciate, hearing the story of someone with more time than me who's like had a similar trajectory of just like it didn't happen fast, but like I'm here, I'm doing the deal. Like it doesn't look the same for all of us. And so I'm just, yeah, I'm glad to have been able to
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
chat
And
with
I think
you.
that that one of the main reasons I wanted to do this show was because I think there's a lot of people out there who are beating themselves up for not getting it right sooner, or for struggling in relationships or struggling with dating. I was a dating coach. I mean, I know how people at every age struggle with dating, and the older you are, the harder you are on yourself over it. And so I think that these stories hopefully are going to be inspiring to some people, especially in sobriety, who haven't got it all figured out at 10 years or 15 or even 20.
Yeah.
Because if you just keep doing the deal, most of the time, I think it does work out. It's very rare that I see someone who's really worked a good program who's all alone at 70. I mean, they're probably out there. I don't know, but they got their own path too. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here and
thank
so
you.
being
So
so
great.
candid. I mean, it means the world to me. This is really personal stuff, and you don't know me from Adam, so thank you. It was,
Well, I feel like I do. So
well,
yeah,
thanks. I guess we kind of know each other now better than a lot of people who've known each other for
yeah,
years.
it's true.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.